I still think the vaccines were massively effective. They worked very well. They said that so from the start. It's like, hey, look, here's the data, here's the sheets. We were going off data where we didn't know 100%.
You have no defense of it at all. When I would talk about, like, my rural area where I live, how people were struggling mightily. They were told that they weren't essential. They were losing their jobs. Their parents were dying in nursing homes. They weren't allowed to have funerals. When you talk about all of that, and here comes Tiberius, and he's like, yeah, fuck. They should have told every motherfucker, the government should have said, every motherfucker that's not vaccinated shouldn't be allowed to work. Now, that's millions of people that would be living in abject poverty. It would have grinded the economy to a complete and total halt. Far worse than it did. But Tiberius says it, and so I asked him the simple question: what is the evidence you're looking at to make you come up with such an authoritative, clearly something that would harm millions of people? And he's like, I don't know. You don't really have the evidence. I don't know. That's what
we already
Fauci
went
told
over
me.
that. It's like I still think the vaccines were massively effective. They worked very well. They said that so from the start. It's like, hey, look, here's the data, here's the sheets. Have fun. Like, especially after FDA approval, it's time to get jabbed, bitches. And
right, so he can't
cry over the program that was built under their guy.
I'll finish my spiel just real quick, Rampage. I'll finish my spiel. And then you can see that
you
pattern.
Just call me Paul if you want.
Paul, okay.
Just call me Paul.
I like Rampage better. It reminds me of Rampage Jackson. That's who everyone thought was.
Rampage is fine better. Hey, whatever you want, brother. Okay.
But then you can see that trend continue on here. Then he's like, yeah, I think the United States ordered the kill on Gonzalo Lira, and I'm happy about it because he was a spy. I'm like, can you show me the evidence he was a spy? No, I don't have it.
That I can't show.
And
you.
Then he's like he says all this fucked up crazy shit. Then he goes off on Waco. Yeah, based. I'm glad they did that shit at Waco. And it's like when you start calling for when you find yourself in the position of I'm glad these people were killed, or I'm hoping that millions of people would have been disenfranchised. These aren't flippant things to say. Now, I'm not saying Tiberius is some monster that should be locked up, but it's so fucking flippant. And so many people engage in this rhetoric where they're not fucking thinking through the positions, which is why I'm so frustrated, because before all this shit, I like talking to Tiberius because he seemed like a sober mind. So I don't know if it's for hot takes or clicks, or if you're just a fucking authoritative idiot, why you come to these positions.
You want to know what I really do? Hey, really quick. Actually, I will answer for you, Tiberius. I will actually answer for you. I actually think that there is some real one of the questions that we had tonight. I really do think that there's some crazy fucking divide, hyper partisanship, where we want to pull out the worst of everybody of whatever they said. And I Tiberius may have said that about the vaccines and not work, but that was a fucking crazy time, Rob, where a lot of motherfuckers that were crazy. And hey, by the way, Rob, I'm on the left. I agree with you. I was not for that. I was more for I'm in Chicago, so motherfuckers shut everything down, and I was fucking pissed. Okay. And but in general, there probably was a happy medium of saying hey, you know what, we probably should have these people specifically have vaccines or they can't work, like a doctor or something, right? Because you do care for people and you should probably be protected on the thing that's happening, especially when it's a pandemic that we have no fucking clue what's going to happen with, right?
I appreciate the steel man.
I reject that,
Paul, but yeah, I'm not going to sign off on this. I'll give a couple of different things. One, most of the time I'm pretty chill on some shit. There's a lot of times I'm very much the centrist or the moderate or whatever. But no, I've got some heavy left-wing takes and some heavy right-wing takes. One of my more heavy authoritarian takes was I fucking hated how we handled COVID. All right, cool. I didn't believe in the lockdowns. I thought they were going to be a fucking joke. No one was going to go with them, and they were going to fucking wreck the economy. So I'm like, yeah, cool. I'll actually have the reddest ticket I'll ever have in my life. On the same time of that, once we finally had, oh, hey, we have a vaccine. Hey, it looks like it's working. Hey, all the doctors, or at least the vast majority of them, are saying, hey, you probably should fucking get this. You know-nothing motherfuckers. Probably time to ante up and just fucking do it, ain't it?
No.
But no, we're smarter than doctors now.
You were the know-nothing. You were wrong, and we were right.
If you want to believe that, Rob, you can go right ahead, dude.
Tiberius is the perfect medium voter. He's like the pro-coal guy that votes for Biden. He's the moral center of the country.
Oh my God,
he's a great genuinely. He's a great representative of what actually normal people think on an array of issues.
He means liberals. That's who he's talking about.
They're very ideologically. Well, Rob, the overwhelming portion of people are not ideologically committed like all of us are, right? A lot of people have these idiosyncratic views.
Well, that's different than what you are ideologically convinced of. He doesn't represent do you think that more than half of America thought that people should be forced to be vaccinated or are not allowed to work? I think even most Democrats were against that.
I'm pointing out that I think it's one thing to say that obviously Tiberius has like partially authoritarian. Like it's weird to say I'm anti-lockdown but pro, sending the police to your house to get vaccinated. But,
oh yeah, in that sense you're right. Most people are walking contradictions. And
get in line. Right this way.
He's not coming from a principled position. He has contradictory. You're right. Most people are like that. But what I'm saying is, like, you can see, like, the vaccine thing's something that's near and dear to me, and we've had this discussion. So that's one thing. But then, like, the example, I don't even have to come up with hypothetical. By the way, I completely, Paul, reject the idea that it was a trying time. Horseshit. Like, I had people telling me that I wanted grandma to die if I didn't listen to them. I had to, as I was shouting to the heavens, don't send the COVID patients to the nursing homes. And then they were doing it, and tens of thousands of people were dying, and they were saying, shut the fuck up, listen to the experts. And now it's like, oh, it was a trying time. 30% of Democrats...
Oh, no, it's just... It really is, though, kind of.
That's bullshit. That's bullshit. Listen,
Rob, it really is. Things do change with science. It really does. And don't get me wrong. I think that we fumbled. Hey, guys, I will build a bridge here between you two here. I do believe that we can look back in hindsight and say, yes, we fucking
look, I'm not walking away from this. Don't build the bridge, okay? Like, I said what I said. I fucking meant it. Like, stop doing that, okay?
Okay, I'm gonna finish this point real quick.
No, Paul's building a different bridge. He's saying specifically the nursing homes thing was obviously wrong, and I think you'd even agree with that. Like, sending people back into nursing homes with COVID was pretty wild.
That was fucking wild.
It was wrong. Hindsight, it was wrong.
But that's what the experts said.
Look at this and you know what's really good about it too, Rob, is that the last time we had some shit like this was the Spanish flu back in like
1919.
19, yeah, it was around the World War I where we came back from World War I or some bullshit. That's what they tell me. I don't even know if that's true, by the way.
It is true.
But that being said, we do have everything like on camera, all the information. Like we are so much more digitally ready for the next pandemic, even though I don't think it's going to happen for another like 50 to 100 years, most likely. Maybe it does happen quicker. I'm not sure. But we can look back on this and say, like, yes, we did fuck up here. We did fuck up with like the schooling with children. We fucked up with that.
No, like, that's not enough. I'm so sorry. I don't buy this rhetoric. We had 30% of Democrats polled thought that your children should be taken out of your house if you weren't vaccinated. 30%.
That's crazy.
We caused immense damage.
That poll. That's fucking crazy.
That's a YouGov poll. I think it's 28%. But
that's crazy. That is like the most authoritarian shit I've ever heard that I can never fucking get behind.
I'll find it when I'm done with my show here. I'll look it up. It's a YouGov poll. Happened. That same poll says.
It's not that I don't believe you, but
yeah, I know.
True. Like that's fucking
50%. I think of Democrats in the same poll thought that you should have been forcibly interned in a prison or hospital setting if you refuse to get the vaccine.
I'll actually back him up on this. I'm pretty sure that's
this is all real, right? And I'm so sorry, but like we act like it was this, Rubik's Cube that was unsolvable. And so it's just like, well, we'll just throw a dart and say authoritarianism, it'll work out. That's not the way the government should work. If the government wants to have an authoritarian policy that they know is going to have terrible outcomes, then they have to cross certain thresholds and they have to be so transparent with the people before they take these actions. For example, they should have given us some idea of how many people do they think will be infected if we don't do these things? How many people do they think will die? How many people will be saved if we do these things? How many people will be harmed in other ways if we do these things? What is the threshold for when the government should be allowed to take it? For example, should we lock everyone down for a disease that would kill 50 people? Of course not. So when is the threshold for when we do mandates and lockdowns? And instead of answering any of these questions, this is what we were told. Shut up, trust the experts. Do you want grandma to die?
No, wait.
That's what they told us.
I think that, hey, on a serious note, on a near and dear to my heart, we can all sit here and like criticize the federal government, the government in general, the institution of medicine, whatever we want to sit here in our hearts and believe. I do believe they did do what you just said. Honestly.
Right. That's right. And so to say like what was a crazy time, like these arguments didn't work at Nuremberg.
No, that's what I mean though. Like it was a crazy time. They did believe that it may spread too quick.
It matter.
It would kill a lot of people. We should lock down so that we don't mass kill.
It doesn't matter if they truly believed it or not. They should have had to prove it. They should have been transparent and answered. They should have given
them. By the time they proved everyone could have been dead.
Right.
Like, that's the problem.
Same argument the Patriots.
I'll stand with
everyone could have been dead, you guys. We were all gonna die. We're gonna die.
Hold on. Okay, hey, even months before COVID became like a largely lethal pandemic, even Fauci said that people who had natural immunity for a virus would obviously have more immunity than those who got a vaccine.
We'll walk that back later.
That's right.
The
problem was
one of the most egregious things about the entire fucking endeavor was the flip-flopping from the CDC and from Fauci and from the NIH was wear a mask, don't wear a mask, wear 4 masks, don't wear any mask at all, get vaccinated, don't get vaccinated. It depends on your situation.
And Fauci also none of this shit was lying
clear
about that in order to protect medical supply too. So that is also something that's
he was lying about that in order
strategy.
to protect medical supply.
Yeah.
To protect medical supply.
And then you had.
I mean, that's stated in record.
It had nothing to do with compliance. It had nothing to do with authoritarianism. No, certainly not.
I'm agreeing with you. I'm just saying that he didn't have the worst possible motive. Okay, he had a slightly less bad motive, but he still lied, and that is a problem. You don't have to have the worst motive to be wrong.
No, his motive. I disagree with you.
Foundation for authoritarianism.
Their motivation,
the test bed. All of this was what can the government get away with enforcing on?
This is bullshit. We literally got. You're talking about the government that literally did like all kinds of fucking testing on people and all that kind of shit. Like for real, dude. If we already know what we can get away with and what we can't get.
So
away
wait,
with.
just to be clear,
hospitals were genuinely lobbying the government because they were having insane shortages of N95.
We need to do a trial run.
Listen, I just want you to hear again what Tiberius just said. He said, dude, we should know the government's history of like corruptly testing on people and shit. And simultaneously, Tiberius' belief is you should have against your will had to be vaccinated or you were no longer allowed to work. So trust the government that would do all these heinous tests on you previously, but now it wouldn't work. Don't worry about it. And the problem is,
like, if you guys want the actual principle here, I trust the government more than I trust you.
Right. Because you're not a conservative, you're a big government authoritarian, right? You're a lefty, and the point is,
no.
The government was wrong.
We're the law and order people. We're the people that tell you how to live your life. That is what social conservatism is.
Okay, fair.
We tell you, hey, look, this is how you shit. This is what you eat. This is when you exercise. This is how you get your fucking life in order. Yeah. Instead, we become a bunch of pussy bitches that sound like a bunch of left wingers.
Hey,
we want freedom and independence. We want everyone just to do whatever they want, except for whenever they disagree with us.
No, wait, I've said here for a while.
Conservatives are the real tyrants.
All right, Tiberius. So you've already said you're perfectly fine with what happened at Waco, those kids dying. You celebrate that. You're perfectly fine that you think the United States ordered the murder of Gonzalo Lira, and you think that's based. You're good for that. And the reason is because you and the government knows what's best for people like me, and you should tell us because you know what's best for my life, correct?
Generally, yes.
Okay, how's your life going, Tiberius?
It's okay.
Oh, really? Yeah, you're doing good because I couldn't help but notice.
Okay,
I saw
hold
previously.
On. This is devolving.
No. No, he's based. So I couldn't help but notice. I saw some posts a while ago, maybe like a year ago, that seemed to suggest things weren't going so hot for you.
I mean, I definitely have my problems as anybody else does.
But you should, despite with your problems, despite those problems, you have the right to
be ad homing.
No. Why is this ad hom?
Trust me. Why is this ad hom?
Bullshit.
That's
bullshit.
You can't see where he's going if you don't fucking give him a fucking chance.
Why should someone be allowed to tell me how to live my life if their life's not being done in the most successful of ways? Tiberius thinks he has the right to impose on me and millions of other people what he thinks is best for our life. So it seems intuitive that I would say, okay, well then clearly you got your shit together.
To argue with the merits of his original argument,
no, that's not
to attack his personal life.
That's horseshit. That is absolute horseshit. Absolute horseshit. I could make any sort of argument I want. It is completely within bounds if someone says the government should force you to live the life I think is right for you to say, oh, well, what are your credentials to say that? Is your life going very swimmingly?
I mean, I don't know. I'm a Christian conservative, and Jesus Christ was impoverished until he was killed by the government, and yet I still think he had really good advice for other people who were successful in their lives. So,
hey, Tiberius, do you liken yourself to Jesus Christ?
No, I'm not likening anyone to Jesus Christ. What I'm saying is you need to argue with the merits of their advice.
I am arguing. I'm making a point that he hasn't given the merits exactly of what his entire position for what my life should be led with. I'm arguing with the strategy in the first place, that the policy should be he has control over my life. It would be no different than if you said trust the experts and I said, okay, well, let's see how the experts did. And then you would say, no, don't talk about their personal life. Don't talk about what they personally said that was wrong. Don't talk about.
That's a really good point. Some of the best Nobel Prize laureates for bacterial infection research literally infected themselves and died in order to do their research. They had really bad material conditions relating directly to their research, but they gave supremely impressive advice.
No relevance. Anything they were doing. The point I'm trying to make is
have relevance.
It has no relevance. You saying that a expert in virology decided to infect themselves and we learned something, therefore that means Tiberius says that he has the qualifications.
It's a hyperbolic analogy showing the difference between material conditions and meritless advice.
No, that doesn't, because what you're doing is arguing with the other point of the trust the experts point. And you're saying we should have trusted these experts even if the expert did something objectively harmful to themselves to sacrifice. That's a different question than saying that we should have people like Tiberius run the government and have his whims be put on the values of all of us. And me saying, well, if that's the case, then surely if you know what's best for me, you know what's best for yourself. And I'm not just talking materially. That's the mistake.
Well, did he get COVID and die? No. So his advice.
Right, Jeb. But because you clearly assume that I can only be talking materially when I talk about this, because you're apparently someone who also would erroneously think
when I say material, I mean the material world, like his conditions in reality don't necessarily mean that his advice was bad, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Hey, Jeb, you're real conservative, right?
Oh, no, he's not.
Making it, yeah. No, don't call me a rhino. Don't say I'm not a conservative. Don't say it. Don't say it. Don't say I'm not a conservative. I'm just saying that, you can't say this.
Say it.
He literally says he's the most conservative person here, and he is.
Edie, really quick. Tell me something that he hasn't said tonight that seems to be not conservative. Jeb Tan.
Oh man, okay, so supporting the three-letter agencies, trying to maintain
that is a conservative thing.
In terms of trying to maintain. I was asked.
We started the.
This is why you're not conservatives. Get out of our fucking party, you pieces of shit.
So, it's simple. I can name
just let me try to circle back around a little bit to what Ty had originally said in the first fucking place, which was that conservatism is the party that tells you how to live. And the reason that Rob brought up this whole contention in the first place was because of that assertion in and of itself. And so what authority do you have to tell me how to live based on the status of your own life? It seems to be a little bit contentious. It seems to be a little bit rough. It's not about trying to fucking shit on Ty for having a rough time. It's about exemplifying the fact that maybe Ty's life isn't precisely ideal. Maybe that's not an example.
No, I'm not mad that you're shitting on Ty for his material conditions. I'm mad that you're using it as an excuse to not attack the merits of his actual argument.
He hasn't given it the merits. The merits of his arguments, that the very few that he said in his attempts to want to control our entire life were things like vaccine mandates, which we already attacked the merits of. This would be no different than saying a mechanic said, you should trust me when it comes to how to fix your car. And I say, okay, well, what's your record on fixing cars? Have you done good? Tiberius is making a claim that's more expansive than that. He's saying you should trust me on how to run your life. And I say, well, what's your record? Fine, not your record then, Tiberius. Tell me someone else that isn't you, that you've given them life advice and totally controlled their life and the policies they should have, including their medical decisions that ended up. Give me your experience and positive outcomes, because apparently everyone's wetting their pants at the fact that if I ask how that's worked out for you personally, they say that's somehow beyond bonds. So we'll say, give us your vast experience of people whose lives you've ran and how they've turned out. Good, bad, somewhere in between?
Right. Yeah, no, Jeb, I think they're completely open to ask that question. I think it's completely on Dag. I'm not going to take that one away from him.
Anyways, great. I think I made my point with Tiberius and the authoritarianism. And when you go back and you look at these sorts of things, right, it turns out that, like, as much as he'll say, well, we were right, you fucking stupid idiots don't know what you're talking about, I was completely right. And if you don't believe me, Jeb, I don't want to say Jeb. If you don't believe me, Tiberius, we'll set up a debate right now. Me, you, and Paul could talk about...
We already had that debate. We didn't agree. We had it a year ago.
Right, and I showed you evidence, and you refused to look at the evidence, right?
No, I showed you my evidence. I literally went with your evidence and said, hey, look, you're by your own thing. You're wrong. We didn't agree. We moved the fuck along. This is why we don't like each other.
It's not a matter of not agreeing. I showed you evidence that definitively showed, using CDC sources and others, that people...
I told you what it said, and I told you, specifically, you were reading your own fucking evidence wrong.
I'm reading the evidence wrong. That's your argument. I'm reading the evidence wrong.
Yes, I literally told you that when we had it. You probably still have it in your VODs, dude.
In what way did I read the evidence wrong?
You were talking about, like, oh, hey, looking from this, dude, this was a year ago. So, like, if I remember correctly, like, you had a spreadsheet and you had these data sets.
From the CDC.
And we went over them. Yep. Yeah, and I was like, hey, all right, cool. Like, this point actually makes me look, like, pretty bad, cool. And then it's like, oh, yeah, like, there was some other fucking point where it was just like, oh, wait, it was, like, per, like, 100,000 or 1,000. I don't even remember.
It's called per capita.
So it was just like, yeah, like, the data was skewed as fuck. And when I said, like, hey, here's your corrective point, you're just like, nah, dude, I'm totally right. I'm like, no, you're really fucking not. And that's the conversation we had. And we went for 2 fucking hours over that shit.
All right. So just to be clear for the people that are listening, I'll tell you what was actually done. We used the CDC before we even look at potential side effects. My argument was that forcing everyone to take this vaccine against their will was a mistake. And so all I had to do was show a subgroup of those that it would have been harmful or neutral to. So therefore, to take away their autonomy and force them to something that wasn't beneficial to them would be monstrous. So the group that I looked at were people that had a previous infection. So the only data set that we used was the CDC. And the evidence was quite stark that if you had a previous infection, you had a very little risk of having a serious case of COVID or spreading COVID. And it's so little of a risk that it would be asinine to say that these people shouldn't be allowed to work if they didn't do something over top of it. And if you had natural immunity, it meant that you were more protected from a serious case of COVID or spreading COVID than if you didn't have natural immunity but had the vaccine. So in other words, the people that had a previous case of COVID were more protected than people that had the vaccine. Here's where it gets interesting. People like Tiberius would say, we don't give a shit. Force the person that had the previous case of COVID to get the vaccine. But the data showed that it almost did nothing. In fact, within the margin of error, what happened was if you force someone that had COVID already to get the vaccine, you slightly increase their chance to be hospitalized. So then you have to ask, well, the impetus is on the person. The impetus is on the person saying you should be forced to do something you don't want, or else you could no longer work. That's Tiberius's position.
Can I clarify one thing just from what I remember?
Sure.
So the way I remember this, and Rob's memory is absolutely wonderful, at least for what he does memorize, so I'll give him that. The first phase of that was largely true. Like, I conceded the point, if I remember correctly, and one of the things that really put a bitter taste in my mouth is when I concede any point to Rob, I'm walking shit back, which I've never appreciated. The second part of that was, if I remember right, correctly, that's where we had that data point disagreement where he was like, hey, look, like, it didn't really matter for this whole thing. I'm like, look, you're talking about one group. I'm talking about still just for everybody. And it's in your data that you put it. It's 3 times more effective, if I remember right. It might have been 5 times more effective for the average individual to have the fucking vaccine than not.
How's that relevant to whether or not we should force everyone to be vaccinated?
Because if it's literally 5 times more effective for the common person to have it, it's probably something you should fucking do.
Okay, let's run this experiment then. Let's say then that their new pill comes out, and this pill stops some contagious disease, like somehow it could stop cancer, right?
Sure.
And we say everyone should have to take this pill so we can stop cancer. Except you know that 5% of the population that takes this pill will instantly die. Would you say, well, we still have to force everyone because it would be a net benefit to society? Would you say that?
5%? That's a little rough. No, let's not do that. That would actually kill
more
people.
How about 2%?
Huh?
How about 1%? How about 0.5%?
About 1/10%.
1/10% is where you're getting there, because that's what we do for cars.
So your argument is that 1/10% of people in this country, so how many, anybody good at math, what would 1/10% of 350 million people be?
Well,
should be 30,000
approximately.
300,000.
Okay.
Is it 300,000?
So what Tiberius
Okay, I'm
just...
sorry, I'm off by a factor. It's 1/100th of a percent as well.
Oh, so 30,000. Okay, so 30,000. Tiberius would literally hold down and force 30,000 people to take a medication that he knew would kill them, because it would be beneficial to the rest of society.
How many people get rooted out by cancer every fucking year?
Well, here's what I would do, Tiberius. This is going to be mind-blowing. You know what I would do? I would say, hey, those of you that this will kill, we're not going to force to take this. And those that want to take it will be protected from cancer, so you won't have to worry. And if you're dumb enough to not take it and you die of cancer, that's on you. I would not force people to die.
That's an awesome what if, but you didn't put that in your original analogy, which is part of the problem that I had with the original assumption. We were going off data where we didn't know 100%, and so like you're telling me it's like, oh, it'd just be nice if we didn't give pills to the people it would kill. That wasn't the same analog to what we were fucking doing, was it?
It's the exact same analog, because your position, and everyone heard it here, but you tell me if we all heard wrong. Your position was everyone should be forced to be vaccinated or they can't work.
I think you've made the assertion several times. I don't think Ty's challenged that at all.
Okay, so then the argument would be you're not carving out cutouts for specific groups. So the easiest way to attack your argument would say, here is a group made up of millions upon millions of people, and that group is people that have already had COVID. And this is actually harmful to them on net. And you're like, yeah, I agree. I can see that point. Your data shows it's harmful to them on that. And I say, therefore, it would be monstrous to force these people to take a medication that will harm them. And your response is, but look at the data that says that the vaccine helps people that don't have a previous case. So then what you would say is, well, maybe then we'd have those people take it, but we wouldn't force those that it would be a negative to. But unfortunately, your original position was force them all, which is why I used that argument to prove how monstrous what you were doing. Then you double down in the analogy. You say, yes, I would be willing to give a pill that kills 30,000 people if it meant the rest of us didn't have cancer, as opposed to just being like, well, no, I wouldn't force everyone. It proves that the sort of policy that you implemented or that you wanted implemented, this one size fits all, nah, fuck that, force everyone to get vaccinated or they can't work, is fucking monstrous. That's what it proves. You have no defense of it at all.
Oh, you're 100% right, because it is monstrous, and there is a level where I'm memeing into it, but there's also a level where the reason why I have this extreme position, why I haven't let off of it, even though I could totally walk it back at this point, it's been years, right, is that we acted in a time where your data was not available. Am I wrong in that? We didn't know about that until, like, the end of 21 is when your data was approved? And
Sure, there was this...
So hold on, there was a little bit. So some of the data he's talking about in terms of adverse interactions wasn't available, but the data that natural immunity always is more robust than vaccine immunity in any virus pretty much ever was something even Anthony Fauci
it's a general assumption, and the only issue is that how did we know who had a natural immunity outside of people who were just reinfected, right?
Well, that's interesting.
Fair.
No, that's interesting because although that's going to solve for some of this, it's not going to solve for the majority because the language that was used in the CDC data set said specifically people with a prior infection. So there's an argument to be made that people that have a previous infection don't have natural immunity, but this data set will cover for that because it says that even if you're one of the people that doesn't have natural immunity, so many people must have it within that previous set of people that were previously infected that their chances...
Which is why it was an even.
And right. I wish EOD was here because, as you can say, one of the big debates I had at the time on this was with Dylan Burns. And the problem is, what you see is people were not looking at... I don't agree with you, Jeb Tan, that they had positive motivations. It was political or self-serving motivations for most of these people.
Well, no, I agree with you. I think in multiple times politics took prio over science for Democrats through COVID. I agree with you on that.
That's why, for example, when I'm talking to Dylan Burns, he's advocating for a position that says in New York at the time was suggesting you should have to have a vaccine passport to go shop for groceries, which is an incredible violation of someone's personal autonomy. But he cuts out an exception that you don't have to have a vaccine passport to go to the Black Lives Matter protest. Why? Because Dylan goes to the Black Lives Matter protest, and he doesn't think those people should have to provide a passport. And he went with it. He went to, and then you would cite, well, the scientists say that you can't contract COVID at the Black Lives Matter protest. You can at the Trump protest. You can at Sturgis, which is also outdoor, but you can at the Black Lives Matter. And to the extent you can, what did they say? Well, 5,000 medical professionals signed on and said, COVID's bad, but you know it's a bigger threat? White supremacy. So we need to get out there and protest. And so when
they actually didn't just say that. They actually said that I'm pretty sure white supremacy has killed more people than COVID too.
Okay, nonetheless, it seems that in a pandemic when they're asking, I'm not sure if that's the exact language, but it seems in a pandemic where they're asking people to not send their kids to school, to not go visit their loved ones, to not be able to go to work. It seems pretty fucking callous to be like, well, we see all these people for Black Lives Matter violating the orders, but white supremacy's killed more people. It seems pretty fucking callous. Nonetheless, the point that I'm getting to at the end here is Dylan talked about how he also, like Tiberius, was in favor of Biden's vaccine mandate, right? And I went through the same sort of data set, and I was able to prove to him conclusively that natural immunity was superior to vaccinated immunity. And I said, now, Dylan, your argument is even those with natural immunity should be forced to get tested every week if they don't have the vaccine. He said, yes. I said, what is your principle as to why that's the case? He said, because it could solve, even saves one life. It's worth doing it. So their inconvenience is worth it. I said, last question, Dylan, are you vaccinated? He says, I am vaccinated. I said, should you be tested every week? He says, no. I say, why not? He says, I'm vaccinated. I said, but you've already admitted that someone like me with natural immunity, even without being vaccinated, has more protection than you. And so if I need to continue to be tested, even though it's inconvenient for me to the greater good, why shouldn't you if you're less protected? And you know what his answer was? Never mind. Neither of us should be tested. Because as soon as it affected them politically, as soon as it affected their personal life, now it's different. Now all of a sudden it's like, well, shit. No, I don't want to be personally inconvenienced. It's not worth that. And that's what happened with so much of COVID. That's why it's so fucking monstrous, right? When you say that we have these large swath plans that say that this is what, but it's sort of a moot point talking about Tiberius' character. I could accept that maybe for content he's being tongue-in-cheek. How do you explain then Gonzalo Lira deserved to die, or the people at Waco had it coming? How do you explain that? Is that tongue-in-cheek as well?